So here we are, semester number 2. The school has been bouncing back and forth between letting us come to school and letting us stay at home. I, of course, preferred to be in school. Some people did not. So we're at home. So I think none of us have done anything for 3 weeks, and I haven't done anything for 3 weeks, so I don't really see what we are gonna get. We don't really have much to contacts with anybody who's gonna give it. We're not gonna get COVID from this, but doesn't matter. It's too late. We're just doing it this way. This is the beginning of semester 2. I hope at the very least that if we have tests and assessments that we can come into campus and do those, because it's really important that we get a good start to this semester. It's not going to be good if we can't. So if there are assessments, they probably will happen in week 3. So hopefully we can at least come in and take the test and then go back to online or whatever we have to do. It's our last semester of our senior year, and you guys went through this already at the beginning of year 11. We don't know how many months it's going to be. I really hope that you can get back and enjoy your senior year a little bit within, I don't know, I'm guessing. If I had to think about the way things are going, I think it's possible the end of July we could actually get back here. So let's hope so. So we're going into the second half of the unit. The first part is chapter number 15. Chapter 15 is about culture, business cultures, and it's kind of fun. And it's fun to do it together, and it's fun to be in class. And but we're gonna have to do it online. The way I'm gonna run this situation is to record the classes like I am now, and then do a bit of follow-up work and follow-up questions, and then go to the next lesson until we get to the assessment. At the same time, I'll throw some exam questions at you. Maybe once a week we'll go over an exam question or 2 in the final part of Friday's class or the last class of the week. Here we go. Okay, so social. I don't know if it's readable. It's pretty good though. It's from something called CEOpedia. I don't know if a real CEO actually reads the CEOpedia. Let me see how the focus is working here. The CEOpedia. And it's under social and cultural factors affecting business. So it's got some pretty good stuff in it. So I'm going to start with that. So we're imagining international context mostly, as usual, for this level. If you look at the book, I don't know if you have your book, so I'll wait on that for a few seconds. But it's chapter 15, page 91. So actually, yeah, let me just start with it. You can go back to it. Cultural considerations. Roy Disney. It's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are. Values. So, all right, so that's where it starts. Now, I've seen questions before, like the ones on page the circles on page 91, there's 3 circles. They don't really, they should highlight it more. but they say the three circles are basically saying that we understand culture in three ways. And I've seen that on a test question before. What are three ways that we can look at culture in terms of business? And the three are here. So I'll describe them first. I'll start with those. Behavior. Behavior is, people have different kinds of behavior, and they expect different kinds of etiquette, gesture, handshakes, how people react to each other in business situations. So body language, clothing, lifestyle, all these things are called etiquette. Etiquette is the expected behavior of a situation. It could be gift giving, anything like that. Then we have the actual values of the people. So what is important to them, you have to understand. So sometimes it comes down to family. Sometimes family is first for some people. In other cultures, it's not expected that you'll bring it into the business environment. Gender roles, of course, Saudi Arabia is going to be very different from the US, for example, in terms of gender roles and the expectations of who's going to be in what job, and things are making progress, but every country still has their own differences. And then besides that, we have the values of society, and that can go into, there's kind of half etiquette in that, like, are people on time all the time? What is their perception of how important the relationships that you have are for the business to work? So some people just want to deal with the actual business at hand, make a contract, sign it, be done with it. Some people want to have a personal relationship with you as before they can sign any papers. So then you have community. And community is related to the national culture and the history of that country, and the different ethnic backgrounds and different religious traditions that are faced in that country. So that's the three ways that we break culture down. Behavior, and a lot of formal behavior there. Also clothing, I guess it says here, is important. People have certain expectations about how other people dress. So behavior, values, and community. So think about those things in terms of how you break down the different ideas. Now, I wish the camera was a little brighter. I wonder if there's an eco filter or something. Should be brighter. There, it's a little bit brighter. I want it brighter. Okay. All right, social and cultural factors affecting business include belief systems and practices, that's values, customs, could be values, could be behavior, traditions, that's mostly the national or community behaviors of all people in a given country, fashion trends, that's behavior, and market activities influencing action and decisions. Sociocultural perspective is one of the most important factors influencing decisions of not only decision making and agreements and negotiation. I think that's a huge one, right? Negotiation. But marketing, of course. Marketing, you have to take into account those values. Also, goals of companies may be set based on these things, especially entering new foreign markets. It should be noted that legal factors affecting business are also considered a socio-cultural factor, and that could go down to setting up a business, who gets paid, even bribes. Bribes might be included in the behavior and values of doing international business. Okay, so these can influence companies. Proper identification and understanding of this factor is coming from your past analysis. And if you don't understand the cultural differences, you're probably going to hit a lot of stumbling points in your negotiations in particular. All right. Let me play with this list and throw some ideas out based on what kind of things we're looking at here. The behavior, so this is demographic mostly. A lot of this is very demographic. Class. Class is an issue in many countries. The perception of equality between groups and classes and ethnic groups. Singapore has very different communities between the Malaysian community, the Indian community, the Chinese Singaporean community, the expat European community. There's a lot of differences in culture and classes. And the British influence, British structures of society were very, very class oriented. I lived in England in 1989, and I thought of myself as kind of a middle class group or person, or, you know, pretty normal American middle group. But when I was in England, there was a lot of pressure for me to declare myself. Like, where did I go to university? Was I really working class or upper or lower class? And I was like, what? I never really thought about it, you know. A lot of the differences between British and American culture is that the merchants of Britain got squeezed by the upper and lower classes and went to the left to the New World from England. And so the kind of growing middle class that was going to be in England became American, and then our values completely were different from British values. Now that's not to say that they're, you know, good or bad. I think that there's a lot to be said for understanding that you have class interests with other workers. I think that's great. And that they're, you know, naturally suspicious of others who might be in the management team or the, you know. But in British colonies like India and Singapore, there were strong hierarchical levels of a class, and it's something that probably was in Hong Kong as well. So you have to understand that. What kind of disposable income level, I mean, that has to do with behavior and also about shopping, you know, how people shop. I would also probably say that some countries are savers, right? Savers and spenders. So it's how what they do with the disposable income is also important. Wealth That's more economic. Economic inequalities, those become social, right? They become social at a certain point. If you're going to have a brand like Louis Vuitton, for example, you're really not going to open a shop anywhere in this city, in Vietnam, except for maybe the center of Hanoi, the center of Saigon, maybe Da Nang, maybe. So in terms of marketing, understanding where you're going to put your shops is pretty important. Level of education, not only level of education, but how important education is as a value for that society would influence how you talk, how you use marketing to show the expectations of people in that society. So if it's very important for parents to have their children go to university, then an advertisement for a drink like Milo would maybe feature, you know, the children growing up and then throwing their graduation hat into the air, and to show that Milo led to the success and the development of their brain and their level of education, their success. At that point, when they graduate from university, they're successful. Also can affect you as not just marketing, but when you're thinking about hiring staff and operations, you also care about the level of education. And also how, I think one difference in education that's interesting is that some cultures expect teenagers to do some paid work before they graduate from university. In some cultures, you have a lot of graduates who never work a day, ever, and then they graduate from university and then they enter the workforce without really having work experience before that. And I find it to be a big difference, because in the US it's pretty common to have a summer job or even a job when you're studying at university, and then to meet somebody who graduated and thinks they know everything about work, who never really worked before. I mean, I was a manager in my 20s because I already worked like 10 years, so I already knew, what the workplace environment was like and how staff, how to manage staff. And then you would have new employees who would come in and they think that they studied a class and they thought they knew everything. It was difficult. Levels and access to healthcare, I'm not sure that's a big story for us. Health consciousness in society, well, some have a lot, some have very little. If you're trying to do business in Czech Republic, where I used to live, or Russia, for example, you are expected to drink alcohol at the meeting. You're going to end up, it would be kind of impolite to refuse to drink the alcohol. After you make a contract, you're supposed to basically seal your contract with a toast to the future of the partnership. So it's quite important. If you try to tell them, oh, I don't drink or whatever, they might not even trust you as much as they did before. Safe driving, that's funny. Buying habits and consumer preferences. Online, obviously, how much online shopping is happening. marketing is going to be affected tremendously by that. Retirement age, I don't see much reason to worry about that. Personality of the average consumer. What is the personality? Are they open-minded? Do they want to try new products? Do they want to try the traditional products that they always bought, that their grandmother bought? So I think there's different elements of tradition and open-mindedness in that. Reputation of company in society. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. It could mean that every culture has a trust level with their government. Every culture has a trust level with their business environment, right? They either think that the businesses are actually managing to create value to earn profit, or that they're corrupt and that they are using the power that they have of the money they have to influence the decisions that affect their business culture. So, okay, let me put it in a different way. Even within Vietnam, there's differences in business culture in between, say, the North and the South. So I had a school that I managed. I was a partner in, but I also managed it. And we had two branches. One branch was in Hanoi, and the other branch was in Saigon. Completely different business cultures. In Saigon, you can actually do kind of marketing that you normally study. Traditional marketing, earning customers' trust, gaining loyalty, word of mouth, promotion, and people building a reputation and then having a successful business in a crowded market that's very competitive. That's very possible to do in Saigon, to stand out and to be successful. In Hanoi, if you don't have connections, or you don't know people, or you don't have some place where you can work with somebody else to get customers to come to you, it's quite difficult to manage a school there. Almost every school has some relationship with another school that is giving them students. So maybe it's changed now, but this is about 8 years ago. So I guess it's probably the same. But the way we had to do marketing for both branches was completely different. One was completely public and the other one was completely in the back rooms and making deals with other businesses in the area. So in that sense, yeah, I would say, okay, reputation of how a company behaves in society. What makes a company successful? Connections or marketing? There's an example. Conflicts within society. I think the US market, sure, you're going to have to be careful. You're going to have fun with some jokes, but if you get too close to the topics like race or gender or transgender or anything that's controversial nowadays, or Donald Trump, you're going to be, edgy, or you're going to cross the line and have a scandal. So those conflicts within society are emotional. They're very emotional. Some companies, they have been boycotted for supporting Trump. They lost customers for supporting Trump. Susceptibility to influence, maybe that's about Bongbin, how stubborn people are. Are they negotiators that are Do they just, there's different kinds of negotiation. There's a negotiation where you're open to what the offer is, and then there's a negotiation where you're, okay, what my target is, this is my line that I will not cross, and I will fight for that line. So maybe some cultures have differences in how they negotiate that way. We'll talk about that later. Social organization, communities, social groups, gangs. How is society organized? That could affect marketing, I suppose, and where you advertise. And where you place your business. Uncertainty avoidance, and this is for next class. We're going to talk about this guy named Geert Hofstede. He is a Dutch social psychologist who compared many countries and did a lot of research to figure out how we can actually measure the differences between countries and why we shouldn't be surprised. You know, so we're not shocked. So we meet people, we go to different countries, and we're like, oh wow, it's so different. But we can understand why, and what are the different factors behind it. But that's coming later. Cultural factors affecting business. I will put this into this link into the classroom. I like it. All right, so social trends and cultural trends. Cultural trends. Fashion. Again, the things that we're worried about are negotiation, making agreements, promotion, and relationships with customers and suppliers, and so the whole X group, right? Employees, customers, and suppliers. So those are the three things to think about. Fashion trends would be something for marketing. Lifestyle, most of this stuff looks like marketing issues. Understanding what, you know, it's also values, right? What values people have. Are they aspirational? Are they having a dream about being wealthy in the future? I think if you look at Vietnam's development right now, we all probably pretty, you know, well, besides the pandemic, up until the pandemic, there was a very, very strong optimism that we would follow and have. And you would probably say that most parents have the dream that their children are gonna either go overseas and be successful, or get an education and come back and be successful, and have nice things and nice cars and perfect marriages. And I think that would be the aspirational lifestyle that we would expect. Also generations, right? You have very different generational behaviors at this time. Social media influence, that'll influence your advertising choices. What kind of influencers you choose, what kind of media you choose to advertise in. What is the dominant communication technology in social groups? Most people are stuck on mobile phones, but depending on the demographics, it could be different. What kind of participation do people have in cultural events? So that would be about sponsorship and promotion again. What kind of events would be suitable for the kind of of promotion that you would want to do. Willingness to pay for tickets. Oh, I don't know. I reckon it's more about how much they're willing to pay, right? What is Vietnam? We get very few international events, music events in particular, and people pay a lot of money for them, usually because they're so rare. But I don't think that's important, really. Popular music styles and design, that could come into play. If you're in Thailand or in the Middle East, there's very specific styles of design that people are used to and attracted to that you might want to use them. You want to use them in your promotion to highlight, because it's pleasing to the eye of those people. Creativity of people. What does creativity mean? What? Presents relations between various skills and competencies of individuals in a team. Wow, okay. So in this case, what they're really highlighting is how much people are willing to assert their own ideas. How much you can expect your staff in that country to, use some ideas of their own to try to help the company. Or if you're having a brainstorming session, will you expect people to give their ideas, or do you have to push them? You have to go, okay, please, somebody give an idea. Like me on every online class. Have to push people to give their ideas instead of just opening the floor and saying, does anybody have any ideas? Silence. But if I call people by name, sometimes I get ideas, sometimes I don't get ideas. But in some cultures, you can't expect to generally ask people to project and put forward ideas. They're not going to do it by themselves. And that could be cultural. That could be something that, I'm just not used to putting my ideas out there, so I don't. One second. Okay. Relative population of folk arts. I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I would guess, versus global imported culture. Right. So how open are people to some cultural, if we had an advertisement with Ronaldo, that's pretty, he's not really, is he an artist? He might be. But if we have an advertisement with Ronaldo, does it help sales? If we have an advertisement with foreign musicians or actors, does it help sales? Maybe it doesn't influence them at all. You have to use local. So that's promotion. It's mostly promotion. Various other determinants of culture. What are they talking about? Technology, relationship to technology could be something. Organizational structures, we talked about that when we talked about the management styles. Certain management styles and organizational structures are expected in certain countries. Some people want, only accept authoritarian type of management. Some countries really expect to have participation in democratic management. Ethics, ethical norms. some countries are very strict about borrowing money, banking regulations, bribes, for example. All of those things are ethical questions. What are you saying there? What is that thing? What's that wheel? I want to touch the wheel. No, the wheel of death. Dress code. Alright, so then we have our, maybe some other elements that are influencing population growth rate, future market size, right? You're talking about economic factors there though. Birth control, I don't see any issue there. Age distribution. Age distribution can change demand for certain products, right? You know, certain levels of technology, certain kinds of early adopters are going to come from different age groups. Life expectancy. I don't know how that influences anything. Gender distribution. I think more to the point is what is the roles, right? If women are in the workforce, then that's also going to affect family kind of advertisements and other elements. Family size, influence of minorities in society. Minorities, what's a minority? Minority is an ethnic group that's not the majority. So African Americans in the U.S. have incredible influence in the U.S. culture, entertainment culture, sports culture. But you know, there's obvious problems as well. In Australia, there's Aboriginal culture, and there's some very strict anti-discrimination laws. So you already know if you're doing business in Australia that discrimination is a problem for minorities. So it's usually not a big shock that you need to do your advertising representing all the various kinds of Australian people that you shouldn't use, hire employees in that country based on any discrimination. So, but in other countries, you might have a completely different situation. Immigration, that's coming and going. I don't know, does it influence Vietnamese culture that so many Vietnamese travel overseas and live overseas? I think so. I think it's possible. Maybe it makes us more open-minded, in terms of we're happy to negotiate with China, we're happy to negotiate with Europe, America, we'll negotiate with anybody. We're just happy to meet everyone, so, because we're in the world, right, as a country. Social diversity, I don't know what that means. All right, then you get to some other elements. I'm just enjoying the overview of different influences of culture today. I'll break it down into behavior, values, and community individually later. This is values, though, pretty much all. Majority and minority religions. What kind of values are coming from the religious culture? I would suggest that here there's a lot of belief in superstition and luck. Certain numbers are lucky. If you pray in a certain way, you can become lucky. If you have the right design of your home, you will protect yourself from losing money. Majority and minority religions. So, it also means that if you have a situation where a religion comes out as like against your company, or if they have a lot of power in society, you have to make them happy in order to negotiate. I think about Saudi Arabia in particular. Influences of religious leaders on social behavior. So that's the power of religion in society. This can come down to all kinds of religion, community issues like holidays, which days that workers will work, what kind of breaks and prayer times you have to give your staff in order to fit in with their religious beliefs. So a lot of employee management is going to be done considering religious behavior. Also, I guess advertising too. Role of religion as a binding, dividing factor. That's too big of a topic. Dominant beliefs in society. For better or worse, the U.S. Way of raising children is different. Maybe Vietnam is changing, but the way I was raised was to work, right? I worked when I was 14, 15, and I've been working for 40, almost 37 years, there's 40 years or something. It was a long time already, but it doesn't feel like it. To me, it feels like it's just what I do, and I've been doing it, and I generally enjoy it. It gives purpose, I guess, to certain parts of life. But when I first went to university, when I was 18, I worked while I went to university, and I paid for a lot of my university expenses myself. And I didn't really know that when I left my home that I wouldn't go back to live with my parents really again, maybe for one summer. But everybody was so proud of my parents. They said, wow, you did such a great job because Keith is able to be independent and take care of himself. So that was a value that was put on me, and now I'm expected to take care of my retirement as well, for example. My parents don't expect me to take care of them in old age. They put money away for themselves, and they had retirement funds, and yeah, they did all the things that they were supposed to do. So in a way, the young people also appreciate the older people's independence, right? So I became independent. My parents were free to do what they wanted to do. They saved up for the retirement, so now for me, I don't have to worry about them so much, so they're independent. So it might look like we don't care. It's just that our value is independence. It's not the best. It's not the best. I like the system of children who have to take care of parents as well, in the Vietnamese style. I think that's cool. I think it's necessary in certain cultures, and it keeps people close together. Families in the U.S., they're close in a different way. Most of us have to go and work and travel in different parts of the U.S. to find a job that we want to do. The company is going to send us to whatever city they want to send us to. So it's not easy to stay close to home. So Vietnamese people get to stay close to home, which I think is pretty cool in some ways, especially if you like where you're at. So, so that's a cultural difference. Maybe it looks like we don't care as much, but we're like putting a value on the independence of the individual. Yeah, I don't even know what people say. I wonder what people say to Vietnamese students, and if they go and they live overseas after they graduate from university in Australia, for example. When I moved overseas, I would come back home and people would say, wow, it's so great that you can just go over there and live overseas, and it's really courageous. It's like, or it's something, it's like, wow, I couldn't do that. That's really hard to do. But they thought it was cool, but maybe it's different. Maybe it's different in your culture, I'm not sure. I never really heard any reaction to, let's say, other people or uncles or aunts when you say you're moving abroad. Maybe there's no judgment, maybe there's none. Okay, so a few other elements. We'll make it, I'm gonna just try to make this about 55 minutes today. Superstitions, let's see. Dominant beliefs, I just gave an example of independence versus responsibility, or at least familial responsibility. Eating habits, it's possible. If you're, be careful on Ramadan, don't make a contract for a concert on Ramadan, because no one will buy any drinks. Superstitions and myths, strong. Some countries is very strong, have to be careful. Science versus religion, I don't know. Is that marketing? I guess so. Customs, traditions, and holidays, very important, right? But clear in most cultures, pretty clear that there's going to be some days where you have to take into account. Attitudes, you can put attitudes with values. These things are developing and changing, right, over time. Attitudes towards banking, saving money, how it's thought of. In terms of frivolous spending, spending without thinking to people. Can you give them credit? Some people give them all credit cards and watch them go into debt. Some people really hate being in debt. So you have to kind of understand the attitude towards money. Wow, yeah, recycling. I guess I had the experience with my children yesterday. They're on vacation from school. They're in their school holidays. But they're still drinking little juice boxes, right? They're still drinking juice boxes. And I'm like, these are for school, right? We don't need to drink juice boxes when we're on vacation, because you don't need to carry them anywhere. They just create unrecyclable packaging that gets thrown away, that never ever can be recycled. These are the worst containers. They put together paper and plastic, and they cannot be separated. It's impossible to recycle them. It's very, very difficult, especially if you need special machines. And I'm watching my kids like drink 3 or 4 of these a day, and I'm like, oh my God, multiply by 365, times 10 years. So what is the attitude towards, products and recycling? If you're in Germany and you start giving plastic bags to everybody and then put a plastic bag inside a plastic bag like they do at, Brenntag. Oh my God, they're like the plastic bag capital of the world. Germans would freak out. German people would be like, what are you doing with all these plastic bags? They would go crazy. They would probably start a consumer movement and boycott your stores and picket and walk around with signs and say, hey, stop using plastic. So some countries are very ecologically thinking forward, and I think Vietnam is going to get rid of plastic bags soon, so we're changing, which is excellent. But some countries, they actually like to have more bags. They think it's cute. They think it's nice to walk around with more bags. It's amazing. Ecological products, recycling, global warming, renewable energy, green products. Those are all related. Imported products and services, attitudes. One of the highlights of the early part of the year was when I asked you, which country would you want to buy a motorbike from? China or Japan? Japan! China or Korea? Korea! Germany or Korea? Germany! Everybody had their cultural attitudes about imported products from different countries. Different trust levels, different beliefs about those products. Brands, like national brands. Certain countries have kind of a brand image. So, what are people's beliefs about imported products and services? Or negotiation, foreign investments? What is their attitude and trust level to do business with certain countries? Russia used to trust the U.S. and do business with the U.S., and that led to absolute disaster in the Russian economy, because why not trust Americans? Attitudes towards work and career. Some countries have a real, it's a very earthy attitude towards work. Some are thinking about their retirement, right? A lot of advertisements about retirement, almost like, how do I stop working? Pride. You have a lot of advertisements with people who have pride in their work. And development of careers, expectations about, do you work with one company for a long time? Japanese workers work for one company for decades. It's pretty rare to see an American worker actually stay with the same company for 10 years. So, the relationships of an individual company in a Japanese worker's life is much stronger. Attitude towards leisure and retirement. What do people like to do for fun? That's going to be in your marketing, of course. Maybe in some of your, if you want to have some team building weekends and bring your staff and pay for them to have a trip, you want to know what they like to do. Retirement. Is retirement supposed to be sitting on the beach or traveling and seeing the world? What is it supposed to be? Attitudes towards learning and self-development. Again, this is for promotion, mostly. Attitudes towards, that's not so different from the imported products example. Attitudes towards safety and privacy. Wow, those are big deals. These are values though, right? Values, so attitudes towards safety. If everybody cared about safety on the road as much as they care about the COVID, that would be pretty cool. Then people would drive a lot safer. But I'll make it a better example. Some countries, people don't want to wear masks anymore. In Vietnam, people are very easy to wear masks and they don't complain. But it also has to do with the trust in the system. Privacy. Privacy is a huge situation. Do we need privacy? We don't really expect it in some cultures, and in other cultures, it's a little bit more expected. Although with mobile phones, it's really hard to say that anyone has privacy anymore. CSR. And really the one thing I would go back to on that is the legal system, like it was at the beginning here, this legal system, legal factors affecting what is this? Whoa, dude. No internet, I'm dead. How, what? Well, anyway, legal factors could go from, taxes to what's expected in terms of corporate social responsibility. Do we think that if someone breaks the law, do we actually think that they're going to get punished, for it? If people don't believe they're going to get punished for anything, then they'll just act without any social responsibility. So, does the legal system support ethical behavior? That would be the question. Finally, attitudes towards management practices such as negotiation. And management, of course, has to do with leadership style as well. Kind of interesting. So, attitude towards negotiation. Some people actually believe that they cannot win unless the other side loses. They think most negotiations are a win-lose situation. But there's also, there's a win-win to it as well. So process of give and take, negotiation, where both parties exchange their, this is a good definition. Process of give and take, where both parties exchange their expectations, bringing in, and offers in order to achieve a common agreement or objective that satisfies both sides of a process. There's many kinds of negotiation. An integrative negotiation, also known as a win-win negotiation, is when we try to get to a point that's both sides feel like they're getting part of what their goal is, right? Although there are some negotiators who think they have to really push you down in order to Americans in particular. Try to negotiate with Amazon. It's very difficult. They have a lot of market power and they're not afraid to use it. So negotiation also depends on who's got the upper hand in the situation. So that is just a lot of information, but it's to stimulate your brain and to get you thinking about all the different things that are included in this topic of culture and how it affects international business. So again, think about the main things that it affects. It affects negotiation, it affects marketing, market research as well, and it affects the X group, employees, consumers, and suppliers. Those are the main influencers, and management style of employees. So 4 things really that you need to think about with the cultural differences. See you guys on Wednesday.